All right, guys. So today let's talk about budget 2011s and just my experiences, at least with two big contenders in the budget 2011 game. And I think a lot of people start gravitating towards like the sub 1000 budget 2011s, just because they don't want to spend, 25, 3000, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to $10,000 on a 2011. And I think like $1,000 is really most working man's budget these days, and even $1,000 can be a lot. But if you look hard enough, you can actually find these sub $1,000 all the way down to $700 if you look well and the market is good for them. So um, there's others on the in the same tier, I should say, of the Springfield Prodigy. You have the lift-free Armory Apollo 11. You have a Mac 9DS and a TSOS like 2311 or something like that. So those are like the four that I see that are like the same series in the same category and around the same price point. Obviously, you have other contenders out there like who is it? Fusion Firearms makes a Glock compatible 2011 or Glock Mag compatible 2011 for like sub $1,000 too. I put it in the same category, but A, I don't have any experience with it, and B, like I'm kind of talking about ones that take the same mags that are Series 70, Series 80, 2011s that are cross compatible in parts for the most part. And both of these are cross compatible in parts, at least from what I've been learning in my experience, right? Speaking of cross compatibility in parts, I will say the magazines are both cross compatible. So this is a Springfield OEM 20 rounder, and it works just fine in the live free. And this is the live free Armory. I think it's a Checkmate mag, and it works great in the Prodigy too. So both of them are cross compatible with mags, which is kind of the reason why I picked up the Apollo 11, because all the mags and all the holsters and everything that I've invested into the Prodigy is also will also work with the Apollo 11. So that's a works holster that I bought for the Prodigy. It it has great retention in it. It feels like it was made for the gun, and then the Prodigy, it feels a little more made for the holster, but the Apollo feels great in this holster too. But it's a little thick. It's a little hard to conceal carry a 2011. So especially a 17 rounder, I've done it like twice. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world, but it definitely can be done. But I'd probably get like a CS or a Bull Armory Ultralight or something if you're looking to conceal like a 2011 platform, right? Now, there's definitely things I like more with the Apollo 11 than I do with the Prodigy, and vice versa. Definitely some things I like about the Prodigy more than the Apollo 11. I'm going to get into the differences between both, and I'll let you decide if you're in the market for one of these pistols, which one you should choose based on what features that you're looking for. I did want to mention real quick. Also have a bunch of Nighthawk Customs mags, and I've invested a lot of money. I've purchased 12 of these magazines because they're $40 or $45 a piece, depending on the day. And I do believe they're the same as the Checkmate mags, and I've had nothing but great experiences with the Nighthawk Customs mag. So um, the Springfield Prodigy mags, I don't like the finish as much. They're made by Duramax, so that's a good magazine manufacturer, but the finish isn't as good. And I've heard people having issues running the Springfield Armory Prodigy mags and other 2011s. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. I would just invest into like the Nighthawk mags if you're looking for a cheap alternative to magazines. Now, out of the box, the Apollo 11 comes more feature rich than the Prodigy. So the Apollo 11 is completely steel parts for the internals, for all the external parts. Both frames are steel, whereas the Prodigy most of the internals are going to be metal injection molded, and those necessarily aren't bad, but they're not known for their durability. Like people usually change the mem parts in their Prodigy, whereas the Apollo 11 comes straight from the factory that way. Both the slides and frames, like I said, are steel, so they both have a great heft to them. They feel substantial in your hand. They're both thick guns, but the Prodigy feels just a little bit heavier to me, but it's very negligible. Um, both the guns are Cerakoted, but the Prodigy uses such a thick Cerakote, and it's an H series Cerakote, which is pretty much the standard in the industry. Um, and it was on so thick, I really had to break this Prodigy in before it became a lot smoother in action and stuff. Where the Apollo 11, it comes with Elite Series Cerakote, so it's a much more durable Cerakote than the H Series. It's a little shinier in finish. The H Series is a little more muted and matte, but the Elite Series Cerakote on the Apollo 11 feels more like a DLC or a nitriding. Like the finish on it feels great. It's a little slicker than the H series, but the E series is such a good Cerakote. This is my first experience with the Elite series Cerakote, and I'll probably start using the Elite series from now on if I get things Cerakoted. I really, really like the Cerakote. I would have preferred a DLC finish or something, but I think the Live Free Armory Apollo 11 has a better finish out of the box. Both are stainless steel barrels. Um, the Live Free Armory is just a little bit shorter. It's 4.15 inches for the barrel, whereas the Prodigy is 1/10 of an inch longer at 4.25 inches. So pretty negligible. Both are basically the same size to me. I like the compact versions more than the full size 5-inch versions of both of these. I just think they're just more balanced looking. Um, Out of the box, the Prodigy came with an optic plate, but hold on, I got it here somewhere. I had the AOS plates out. There they are. The Prodigy comes with just a standard optic plate cover and some iron sights, which is fine. That's how most pistols come these days. And here it is. It comes with suppressor height sights out of the box, so the sights are going to be a little bit taller. Take up a little more of that optic window. And the Apollo 11 is direct mounted, but it's only cut for the RMSC. So if you're looking for more optic plate options, the Prodigy is the way to go. But the optic plates are expensive. Some come with the rear sight, some come without. The one without obviously is cheaper, but these are about $90 to $100 plates a piece. I've got an RMR, a Delta Point Pro, and an Acro. Also, it comes with a Hex Dragonfly plate, but I don't think most people are going to use the Springfield Hex Dragonfly, so it's basically useless. But the optic system, I think, is a little bit better on the Prodigy, but it's going to be more of an investment. But the agency AOS plates, a lot of other 2011 platforms will use. So if you're going to invest into plates and stuff, you may be able to transfer them to like an upgraded version of a 2011. Whereas the Apollo 11, it's direct mounted for RMSC, so you have to use a smaller optic like a Holosun 407K or something, or like a Defender or an EPS, a Defender CCW, I should say. So, and they say because the slide's thinner, which it is, than like a polymer frame striker fired. That's why they do the RMSC footprint, but you have to pick an RMSC footprint optic for the Apollo 11. But the sights are lower, so it doesn't take up as much as that window as the Prodigy, and they co-witness the sights, even though that, like I said, that they're lower. I like the sights better on the Apollo 11. They're a little more low profile. It's got the black serrated rear, and it has a bright yellow high-vis night sight in the front. That's about my favorite combination, whereas the Prodigy has these serrated rears in the back, a lot higher, takes up more of the window, and a fiber optic front. I think the fiber optic front is fine, but it's a lot more fragile than the just a standard iron sight and stuff. So I always have these fiber optic fibers break on me over time, and I have to replace them and stuff. So I don't like having to service my front sight like that. So I would have preferred a night sight, and I do prefer them sitting a little bit lower. But obviously, with the AOS plate and stuff, it pushes up that optic a little bit more. So I see why they had to make them suppressor height in the back and stuff. But better optic system for the Prodigy, but better iron sights, and they sit and the optic sits lower on the Apollo 11. Um, Man, there's so much to go through. Let's talk about the safeties, because the safety is a very important part for both of these since they're single action only pistols. The hammer has to be cocked for you to be able to engage the trigger. Both require the beaver tail safety to be engaged before the trigger can be pulled, and both have an external ambidextrous safety on these. So the Apollo 11 safety, it is just it just clicks. It feels a lot more satisfying. It works on both sides, no problems. I like the safety, the actual safety on the Apollo 11 a lot more than the Prodigy. The Prodigy just doesn't click off as well. And one thing I've noticed on the Prodigy is if you try to use the right side, if you're left-handed, I can't engage the safety. Like I have to force it to on the other side. Once I've engaged, I can engage the safety, but I can't take it. Oh, call me a liar, but it's harder to take it off. You see how it double double clicks sometimes. So the safety isn't as good on the Prodigy, and that's one of my main complaints on it. And but the beaver tail safety is a lot easier to engage. It's a lot more forgiving. So when I'm trying to gain my master grip, if I don't have a complete master grip on here, I'm still able to engage the trigger. Whereas this was a lot less forgiving on the Apollo 11, which is why I have it Ranger banded, so I don't have to worry about that to engage the trigger. So the trigger on both of them are fantastic. Here's the trigger on the Apollo 11. 2011 or 1911 triggers are straight pullback. They're all of them are fantastic. If I could have this kind of feeling trigger in all my guns, I would take it. But apparently both of these aren't very good triggers for 2011s. But coming from like striker fired and hammer fired, like polymer frame or metal frame, just regular pistols, these are fantastic triggers. I have no complaints. The reset's good on both. Short reset, very quick triggers. And here's the one on the Prodigy. There's a take up, reset, fantastic. I'd say that the Prodigy is a little smoother all the way through. If I had to pick a better trigger, I would call the Prodigy a better trigger than the Apollo. It's like a little more clicky on the take up, not as crisp on the break. Reset's a little more pronounced on the Apollo, but I'd say the differences are negligible. But if I had to pick one, the Prodigy would have a better trigger. Slide stop. The slide stop is a lot easier to engage on the Apollo 11. I've actually had issues engaging the slide stop on the Prodigy. It's recessed into the grip here, where they cut out more of the grip here to engage your slide stop. And I think it sticks out just a little bit more on the Live Free. And this is definitely more low profile. So I like the slide stop a lot more on the Apollo 11. Magazine releases are about the same. It sticks out more on the Prodigy, but I haven't noticed any difference on either of them. I always have to break my master grip a little bit to engage the magazine release on both. So I don't really notice that much of a difference between either. They do make extended mag releases, but I haven't messed with any of those yet. Hammers are both fine. They're both skeletonized. I don't notice one being faster than the other, but both are fine hammers. The grips themselves. So the Prodigy comes out of the box with this fantastic grip, and the grips are only $40. I could switch both of these grips back and forth on each other, and a lot of people buy a Prodigy grip for the Apollo. The Apollo 11 is actually 3D printed. It's a 3D printed grip, but it's got this like dragon scale texture. I don't mind the texture. Some people say that they don't like it. I'm fine with the grip, but if I'm changing out the grip and stuff, what I would do, I'd put either buy a Prodigy grip for this, or what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy an aluminum or stainless steel grip for the Prodigy and put my Prodigy grip on my Apollo 11. But I think the Prodigy has a better grip out of the box. The texture's better. It's a better feeling grip, which grip's very important for shooting. But I will say that the Apollo has a better magwell. It has a better funneled magwell, where the Prodigy basically has a non-existent magwell. Let's talk about like the mainspring housing on the back, because I think that's important too. So the Prodigy, I believe, uses a plastic mainspring housing in the back here, where the Apollo uses an aluminum one. This is metal, and they've actually matched the 3D printed polymer on the grip portion. So I really like that detail on the Apollo 11. The mainspring housing seems to be a little bit better on the Apollo. Let's talk about smoothness of the actual slide itself, because that's one thing people always notice when coming from just like a locking block barrel to a 1911 platform. It's just how smooth it reciprocates and feels. The Prodigy, it is so damn smooth. It feels like it's on ball bearings. I love the feel of the Prodigy, whereas the Apollo, it's still smooth, but it's much more mechanical, if that makes sense. Like, it's noisier. It doesn't feel as good. I feel like it's the barrel lockup a little bit when it's releasing and unreleasing, like these connections here that connect to the slide and lock it into the slide. I feel like it's that more than the actual frame or slide to frame fit, but it's still a very smooth slide. And but I will give the edge. It's a large edge to the Prodigy. The Prodigy is noticeably just smoother, and it reciprocates a lot smoother than the Apollo. The downside to the slide, though, on the Prodigy is that it hangs up on the disc connector all the way back. I don't notice it when I'm shooting it, but I notice it when I'm racking it. When it shoots, it's fine, but there's a little, it hangs up on that disc connector back, and you can kind of see it struggling to go back in the battery there. Whereas the Apollo has no issues. It doesn't hang up on the disc connector at all. But the disc connector was one thing I was definitely going to change out on the Prodigy, so I could alleviate that issue. Oh, what else can I talk about on both of these? So let's talk about prices. So MSRP on the Prodigy, it's about $1,200 MSRP. And the MSRP on the Apollo 11 is like $1,000. So they're roughly the same, but the Apollo is like 20% cheaper. $200 is $200, right? And if you buy them used, the Prodigy was actually cheaper for me. So the Prodigy, I can't remember if it was 700 or 750, but it was one of those two. I found this Prodigy on the used market for like 750, whereas I paid $850 for the Apollo 11. But I've seen these go as low as like $650 on the used market. But the reason why I paid $850 was because of the V6 porting that it came with. So this is a out from the factory porting, and it is noticeably flatter shooting than the Prodigy. But the Prodigy is much more smooth and slide reciprocation than the Apollo. The Apollo is a little faster. Like I notice it being faster and going into battery a little bit faster for like mag dumping and stuff, but it's very negligible. I'm talking about so small. Like I notice it, but it's very minuscule, if anything at all. But the Prodigy, it just feels a lot smoother. as the slide is moving back and forth, but the Apollo is faster. But I have a feeling the Apollo is faster because of the porting. So I do like how they offer a porting from the factory of this, but the Prodigy also comes with a version that's comped. So it's got a chunk port comp in the front for another version. I think those are like 13 or 1400. I haven't really seen one on the used market, so I don't know how much they go for used. But I think I see more Prodigies used than I do Apollo 11s. But the Apollo 11s are always going to be cheaper than the Prodigies, so that's something to keep in mind. And what's really nice about both of these pistols, and I think like the Mac 9 and the T-Sauce, is all those parts are cross compatible. These are also compatible with staccato parts. For the most part, I think there's some hand fitting involved, and not everything might fit sometimes. Like obviously the guide rod on both of these are going to be a little bit different because the slide length is different. The disassembly is a little bit different. Where this on the front, I don't know what you call it. You have to put an Allen wrench to loosen this, and then you can take it down and whereas like this is more standard 1911 where you have like a little hole in the guide rod and you have to put like a little Allen wrench in there and then you have to push out the reverse plug or whatever it is in front to disassemble it. But both are about the same. Both kind of take a little bit of learning to learn how to service it and do maintenance on these. And what the downside to 2011s is you definitely have to oil them and kind of keep them clean to keep them running, right? Whereas the like a Glock 19 is a lot more forgiving. You can shoot a lot more rounds without having to clean it, do maintenance on it, and stuff like that. And the maintenance on 2011s in general is a lot more difficult. You have to have a lot more specialized tools. Changing out the extractor is kind of a pain in the ass on a 2011, whereas changing out the extractor on like an M&P or a Glock is super simple, right? So that is something to keep in mind if you get into this, but like you should be able to go like 5, 10,000 rounds without even having to worry about an extractor. So I'd say like that's not even on most people's list of things to worry about. I worry about it because I shoot a lot more than most people, and I'm a little harder. Like I shoot my guns. I won't sell like I don't abuse them, but when I shoot them, I shoot long strings of fire. I shoot a lot of ammo at one time, so I'm a little bit harder on my guns than let's say someone that takes out like a box of 50 rounds to the range on the weekend, you know, once or twice a month or something, right? So, um, very cool platform, a little more complicated. They're just such fantastic shooting pistols. I haven't had like any malfunctions with either of them, so both of them are later series serial numbers. And I know out of like at first Prodigy had issues out of the box, and the Apollo 11 had like weird ejection patterns and failure to go to the battery, and it had weird problems at first too, but they seem to have worked themselves out. And I do know the Live Free Armory has pretty good customer service. At least they answer questions to get to you relatively soon. And I haven't had any experiences with Springfield, so I can't attest whether or not that's good or not. But the warranty and stuff on the Apollo 11 seems to be very good if you do have issues. And I'm sure that Springfield upholds some sort of warranty and stuff. The Apollo 11, I believe it's at least assembled in the U.S. in my great state of Florida, whereas the Prodigy, I believe, is like a Croatian pistol, if I'm not mistaken. And if that means anything to you. One thing I did want to say is both are bull barrels and stuff too, which is kind of nice. So you can shoot longer with a bull barrel without it heating up and getting too hot and stuff. And like I said, I haven't had any crazy issues with either, and I've shot a lot of different kinds of ammo. Out at least out of the Prodigy, I've only shot 115 grain out of the Apollo 11. I have about 700 to 800 rounds out of my Prodigy, and I've yet to really experience any failures. I had like a failure to feed, but I think that's how I loaded the magazine. I could be mistaken. And I was shooting hollow points. I was shooting 124 grain plus P HSTs, and I think the hollow point got kind of caught up on the feed ramp while feeding. So I don't know if I would call that a failure, but that's the only failure I experienced on the Prodigy. And I only have about 100 rounds on the Apollo 11 so far. So I can't attest to its reliability yet, but it's very fun to shoot. I haven't had any issues out of the 100 rounds that I shot for it. So if I could pick one, right, one out of the box, let's say I had to pay retail, had to pay brand new prices for them both, I'd probably go with the Apollo because A, it's cheaper, A, it doesn't have mem parts, or B, it doesn't have mem parts. And it just seems to be like you have to do less to this to make it a good pistol. Like you can run this OEM pretty well, where like you probably want to demem the Prodigy at some point and stuff. But they're both definitely have like the pros and cons to both. Both are relatively similar. If you're looking to get into one or the other, like both are a good choice. But I think for the more budget conscious person, the Apollo 11 is definitely the way to go. I like the name brand of Springfield. It's just a like much more pronounced. It's much more known across the United States. So I would think Prodigies, like more people might service Prodigies over an Apollo 11. I gotta say, I'm having issues finding a gunsmith that will work on either of these, because I did buy a bunch of parts for at least my Prodigy. Took it to a gunsmith, and he told me that he couldn't do it after having it for 2 weeks. And this is a very well-known gunsmith in my area, and I'm just extremely surprised that he can't work on my 2011. So I'm probably going to have to send it out. I hate shipping firearms, but I think I'm going to send it to Skip's Guns. He also has a YouTube channel that kind of specializes in 2011s. I'm going to let him work on it, but I just get so nervous shipping out my firearm because I'm afraid that someone's going to steal it. Because you have to announce that it's a firearm. You put on the box that it's a firearm, so everyone handling and seeing your box knows there's a firearm in there. It just kind of makes me nervous. But I think I'm going to have Skip from Skip's Guns do the work on my Prodigy. So, but finding people to work and do maintenance on 2011 is a lot harder than like let's say a Glock or a Walther or basically any other pistol, right? So just remember that when you're getting into it. Like I said, the servicing and maintenance are a little harder as well on the 2011s, but it's a really cool platform to get into if you have the budget for it. Would I just like, I'm usually a proponent and buy once cry once, but when you're talking about 2011s, like even let's say staccato, if you want the same features, like if you were to buy this like as a staccato, you're looking at $4,500 for one that's comped, has the optic cut. um, that's basically the two main features of a staccato. You're looking at $4,500 for an XC, or like I think they make like a C2 that's comped and stuff or whatever, and that's still 3,800. So buy once cry once doesn't really apply to these 2011s as much as like an optic system or something else, right? I think $1,000 is a lot for regular people, and I think $1,000 is a good way to get into the 2011 platform. If you look hard enough, depending on your state and where you are and the availability of things and what time of year that you're buying it, because right now guns are just so available. No one's buying them. People are trying to get rid of them. They're they're widely available and they're cheap. So that's why I've been kind of picking up more guns with my disposable income, because they're so cheap. And I'm seeing the stuff that used to be hard to find coming out on the market, right? So if you're in the market, you might want to save your money and start looking and buying them right now and stuff. Maybe trade. You can always trade pistols that you don't use for stuff too. So that is just a thought. But I don't regret buying either of these. I would buy both of them again. I'm going to keep both of these pistols. I am not interested in selling them or get rid of them. Um, if I had to, if I could just only own one, I'd probably own the Apollo. But it's if the Apollo wasn't ported, right, I'd probably keep the Prodigy over the Apollo. But I'm only keeping the Apollo because it's ported and it shoots a lot flatter than the Prodigy. But I guess if I got this ported or comped, I'd I'd buy or I'd keep the Prodigy over the Apollo. But man, those no like the MIM internals on the Prodigy, that's a big con compared to the Apollo. So I know Springfield can provide non-MIM parts for the price point. They just choose not to. So just something to keep in mind. Would you move over to 2011 if you're like content with like your Glock or your CZ or whatever? Absolutely not. You know what I mean? So I just kind of wanted to get into it because I like the way they look. I always thought that they were cool. I've never owned a 1911, and this is my way of feeling like more like a red-blooded American without buying like a 45 ACP 1911. So it's a little more practical for me buying the double stack 9 millimeters. But I really, really like them. Am I going to start making this my primary or my primary secondary, I should say? Probably not. At least not right now. Until I start learning it a little bit more and being able to service my own, I'll probably just stick with Glocks, right? But both of them are fantastic. Don't have any regrets, like I said. And if you guys have any questions about at least these two, I can help you answer them. Um, because I think people should do their due diligence on both if you're interested in buying both. Make sure you kind of know what you're looking for. Always do a function check. Uh, Ask about serial numbers and see if it's a later serial number date. Ask the owner if there's any issues that he's ran into, or like a lot of people will be honest. About their pistols, like when they bought it, if the mags haven't worked for them. Because there's a guy I'm talking to about a Fusion Firearms XP Pro. He's telling me the Fusion magazine extensions in the mags he's had issues with. I'm probably going to buy the gun, but he said I'll give you the mags and the extensions, but just know I've had issues with them. So I just ask, right? Just ask questions when you're looking at the secondhand market on these, and always look up multiple people about their experiences with them, because you might hear a good one with one, a bad one with another. It's probably a good mix of both. And just remember, if you see a lot of like videos that are a year or 2 years old with people with a lot of issues, just know that a lot of manufacturers work out the kinks and stuff with the later generations and stuff. So don't be afraid if you see a lot of issues, but I'd be cautious if you hear people having a lot of issues, because I've heard of a lot of people having issues with the Apollo, and I've heard people having issues with at least the 5-inch Prodigies. But in my experience around ranges, I'd say that they've pretty much alleviated those, and they've taken care of the customers that have had those issues. They've sent them in with an RMA, no questions asked, and kind of taken care of the issues and stuff. So I can't tell you which one to buy, but the Apollo 11 is a better built gun out of the box. Let's just say that. So. But that's my video, guys. I appreciate if you made it all the way to the end. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And like always, join me next time.